is Joshua Kitts of the Composed Dream Game Marketplace, and today I want to take a closer look at SIG Manual of the Primes. This is from Genesis of Legend Publishing, designed and written by Jason Pitre. SIG is in many ways a book that is a love letter to Planescape, so the setting baked into this book is very reminiscent of Planescape. SIG is a city in the middle of all of the planes of existence and links to those. Part of the engine that runs the setting is actually which of the three planes SIG is currently connected to. And the engine inside this book is a kind of Spark engine. So Spark is a predecessor game from Genesis of Legend, which is more generic. It actually has mechanics for generating your own setting. And the engine is a little different here, but there are a lot of similarities. So this is a generic create your own setting book. After the War is a newer title from Genesis of Legend that also uses the Spark engine. So there's some common features between these three titles. But SIG is a beautiful hardbound book. It clocks in at about 240 pages. Each chapter has its own color. Within the text, there are both black and white and full color illustrations throughout the book. And there is a lovely purple marker to go with the color scheme on the cover and so forth. It's a really lovely book to handle in your hands. When I'm reading this, it feels very inspiration dense, but less detail dense. So there is a significant amount of content here, but it's not in that finely detailed way. It's in that this is an inspiring idea that you can explore. So I'm going to flip to where I have marked in the book here. These are the 15 planes that make up the universe of SIG. So there's elemental planes, there's ideological and conceptual planes. So these are things like the plane of flame, or the plane of wind, the plane of justice, the plane of order, the plane of dreams, and the plane of lore. When you're making characters in SIG, you choose a heritage, which could be you're from one of the infinite number of primal planes, so you could have primal heritage, where one would say normal humans come from, say. Or you could have a planar heritage, which corresponds to one of these 15 planes. So you pick a heritage, you pick a faction, you pick a power. And power are kind of like the gods or rulers of those planar domains. So that is baked into the character creation, that you're choosing your association with these powers and so on. The engine gives you two attributes, which would either both be rated as starting characters, a D8 and a D8, a D10 and a D6, or a D10 and a D6. So one attribute is smoke, and that's effectively a narrative control attribute. So you can control NPCs that share one of your heritage factions or powers who happen to be in the scene, or other elements that are associated with, say, a plane that you come from. And also, whenever you start a scene, you roll your smoke. So whoever rolls the highest smoke, including the GM, gets to set one of the elements of their choice of the scene. So one of those is the platform, and the platform is when and where the scene is taking place. So you could choose, if you had this highest smoke roll for the next scene, to set something in the past, for example, as a flashback, or in the future. So in addition to those dice, you also have talents. Those, if you chose a planar heritage, you have to choose some talents from your planar heritage, and you could have a mother and father from different planes, of course. So that'll affect, and those are a static +1, +2, or +3, and they're common, broad, and deep talent ratings. So a deep talent is supposed to be much rarer, and you can have one of each that you add to a talent roll. So each might be apply. It is a very narrative and story game type system. So the only time you will be rolling dice within a scene is if another player disagrees about with what's happening. That could be the GM, that could be another one of the players. So you might narrate that one of the NPCs surrenders to you, and another player might decide, no, that's definitely not happening. And that's when you would break out the dice and figure out which die you should be rolling and what talents might apply to it. Your player character might not even be the scene, but there might be characters that share your backgrounds in it, and you might be able to roll some of your talents for that on top of your smoke die. All Spark engine systems have beliefs as a core part of the system, so you would have 3 beliefs in SIG, each one associated in some fashion with the heritage, faction, and power that you selected for your character. And when you a scene features that belief, so you're affirming that belief or you're confronting it or changing it, you gain influence, which is a meta currency that you can use to trigger scenes that don't involve any conflicts, that let you take harm off your character, for instance. And if you acquire enough influence, I believe it's 15, that's when you get to upgrade your character at the end of a story arc. So improve your die types or gain another talent. Typically when a story arc ends, you also change the tethers. So this is a very setting element. You also would change the tethers that are connected to SIG at the time. So there's always 3 planes that are kind of ascendant and most connected to the city of SIG, and those planes will change when you move into a new story arc. So a lot of the system is baked into the rules and mechanics of the system, but there's also a good lengthy section of the book, at least half of it, that is specific to the setting. So describing the different planes, describing the city itself. So there's these lovely maps and descriptions of the city, and then specific characters as well as examples for each kind of section of the city show up as well. So I will read a short section here, and I am going to jump around slightly. You can't miss the golden spires. These immense towers are pillars of radiance, resplendent in glory. None can question the status or influence of the mighty beings who own the manor towers. The golden spires don't follow the laws that constrain lesser folk. Each tower is an independent domain, subject only to the authority of the tower owner. Some magisters even alter the very laws of reality to suit their whims, binding their towers to the shard realms or establishing permanent gates. The spires often have treasure vaults protecting valuable treasures, stashes of coin, ancient relics, mystic artifacts, spirit flasks, and prized vintages of wine. Needless to say, there are many bashers who get the bright idea of running the shadows and breaking into the towers. Which is, of course, the sort of thing that sets your mind spinning with the possibilities of things that could be happening in the city of Sig. And there is an example character who lives in the Golden Spires region of Sig. There is a short adventure as part of the book at the end here, and examples of play are at the end of the book, which is something to look out for, because certainly on first reading when I was flipping through it, I was often going, oh, how does this actually work in play? And there's a lengthy example of play at the end of the book, which helps a lot if you read that when you're questioning how things actually work. There's actually a very strong starting scenario premise that is part of the character generation process. So as GM, you generate the tethers that are part of SIG, and the players all put an index card between each player, and that is an NPC face that has some connection between those two players. And the GM is in control of those important NPCs in any scenes where they appear. And there is one index card placed in the middle of the table that all of the all of the player characters are connected to and have something in common. And the way the very first scene in SIG is meant to start under this premise, this tight premise, is that that character that everybody is connected to has just died. So a fascinating way to start off a campaign, to be sure. Well, as I said, it is a beautiful book. I hope this has piqued your interest in SIG. The hardbound, hardback copy of SIG is $50 Canadian on the Composed Dream Game Marketplace. You can get the PDF for just $15 as well, or on its own, I should say. Everything always comes with, any purchase of a print copy always comes with a PDF as well. Right now in January 2021, any 20% of all sales go to support a friendly local game store on checkout. You can just pick a store that you want to support, and 20% of the sales goes to support that store. I, of course, as the owner and operator of the Composed Dream Game Marketplace, do take 10% of sales. I hope that has been of interest, that you can get some ideas of how you might use SIG at your gaming table, and good gaming.